Hello there everyone and welcome to Altenew Academy. Today we're going to be creating this card with a few of my favourite things from the Vintage Galore release. So we have some beautiful flowers, we have a really cool sentiment and also a beautiful background as well. So to start, I am going to be creating my florals for this card, and I'm going to be using the Golden Days stamp and also the mask stencil. Now, when you get the mask stencil, you do want to make sure that you've got it the right way round for you to use it with the stamp. So you're going to have to make sure that you have the etched Altenew on the top. So what I'm going to do is I am going to firstly add a base layer for my flowers and leaves. So I'm just adding these onto a piece of classic Crest Solar White cardstock. And for the base layer of the flowers, I am going to be using the Mountain Mist ink. And I'm just using a small blending tool to add this ink through the stencil. You can use whichever blending tools that you find works best for you. I'm also going to be adding the leaves onto this little sheet here too. So I'm just going to take the base of those, and for those ones I am going to be using the bamboo ink. So this is a really light olive kind of green and it is very, very pretty. So I'm going to do two of the more rounded leaf clusters, and then I'm also going to do this little foliage spray that we have here again in that bamboo ink for the base. So I'm just going to add that through the stencil using a small blending tool. So once I have all of my base images done, I can then add the outline images from the stamp set over the top. Now I find that if I do the blending first, it doesn't smudge any of the ink, so that's why I do that first and then move on to the stamp set. So I'm just going to take the outline for that flower and just stamp that directly around the image that we've just done with the ink blending. And I am using some of the Obsidian black ink to do that. So once I've done the flowers, I can do exactly the same thing with the leaves. So again, with that Obsidian black, I'm just taking the outline and stamping that around the blended image that we already have on the cardstock. So once I have done with that, I can then move on to the first or second layer of the flower. So on the stamp set, it's the first, but because we have that base with the stencil, it is in fact the second. So I'm going to stamp this into place using some of that Volcano Lake ink, one of my favorites. And for this one, I'm just lining up the bottom edge of the flower and also the right edge. As you can see, it's just going to kind of line up perfectly around the outline in that part. So at the bottom and at the right hand side. So once I've done that, I'm going to do exactly the same with the third layer. And for this one, I am going to be using the Lagoon ink. Now again, as before, this one lines up at the base of that flower and also the right hand side. You do get the layering guide within the stamp set packaging. So if you are having a little bit of trouble layering this one up, just check that out and I'm sure it will help you out. So once I have stamped both of the flowers, I'm then going to move on to the next layer. Now this is going to add in that really dark shading within the base of the petals. So I'm lining this one up around that flower center and just at that tip of that bottom left petal that we have there. So this is going to kind of create a non-stamped area around that flower centers, the little stamens, and then also add the touch of that really dark detail on that bottom petal. So once I have that done, I can then move on to the leaves. Now these are just going to stamp directly within those leaf outlines that we do have there. So for this layer that I'm doing now, which is the base on the stamp set, this one I am going to be using that parrot ink to give us a really vibrant green for these leaves. I'm going to use the same color for the little foliage spray as well. So this again was the parrot ink. I can then move on to the next layer. For this one, I'm going to be using the olive. I'm just making sure that I have the ink on there perfectly before I stamp that into place. And as you can see, these layer up really, really easily. They're just going to go within that outline that we've just previously stamped. I'm then going to move on to the little foliage spray, again with that olive ink to add in that darker detail there. I'm on to the last layer of the little leaf cluster now, and for this one I am going to be using the moss, and this is just going to add a really dark kind of tip to some of the petals and also the base too, so that's going to really add a lot of naturalism or realism to this image. So once I'm done with that, I'm then going to add the flower centers in. So I'm going to be using the beautiful Sunray ink to add that first layer into that little flower center. I'm then going to be using the chamomile to add in the second layer. I just love all the detail that you get with all of these different layers. And then last but not least, we're going to add in that third layer with some Snapdragon ink. So once I've done that, as my little images were really close together, all I'm going to do is I'm going to snip around them, just making sure that I don't cut into them before I do use my dies. This is also going to help me because I am going to be using my mini blossom, and it is a smaller plate for the die cutting, so you want to make sure that they're under 3 inches wide. So once I've done that, I can then take the coordinating die set, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to place that around the coordinating image, making sure that I can see the whole of the image through the die. I'm going to then add a little bit of tape so it doesn't move around, add my metal shim into place on top of the images, and then run those through my die cutting machine. When you are using a metal shim like this, you do want to make sure that it is a little bit away from the edge of your plate. That way it's going to more easily go through your die cutting machine. So I'm just going to go through all of the images, just adding them around the die around the image, add a little bit of tape, and then run that through my die cutting machine to create these really beautiful die cut images. So once I have all of my images, I then have a little panel of white cardstock. So this is 3 inches by 4 1/4. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to add my images into place. Now I don't have any adhesive on these at the minute. I just want to make sure that they're in the right place before I do stick them down. So once I'm happy with my little floral arrangement, I'm then going to take some press and seal. I'm going to press that onto the images that we have there, and that's going to keep them all in place. And then once that's done, I can then add some foam tape behind the images, making sure that I do go over the little cut lines on each of the images, and that will keep the whole piece together as one. So once that's done, I can flip over my press and seal and then pop that into place onto that little white panel that we had. Now I was just going to add this onto a white card base, but then I decided I wanted a little bit extra in that background to really make my image pop. So I do have the Dotted Teardrops Stamp Set, and I've took the large Dotted Teardrops stamp from it, and I'm going to stamp this repeatedly onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card panel. So I'm using some of the chamomile ink, so this is going to give a really freshness to the background, and I'm going to stamp the first image along the bottom, and I'm then going to place the second image into place where the little teardrops finish. So the teardrops finish and there's a little bit of a gap that you can then place the bottom teardrops into the top teardrops on the stamp that we've just previously stamped. Hopefully that makes sense to you all. So I'm just kind of moving my way up this card panel with the repeated teardrops to give me a really beautiful background, and it's going to look like we've cut this out of a piece of patterned paper. So once I have added in this last stamp just at the top, I then have my panel complete, and then I can add this onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base. I'm then going to take my panel that we have with the flowers, and I'm just going to be adding some of the foam tape from Altenew just on the back of this for a little bit more dimension on our card. I can then pop this into place onto that background panel, making sure that I have the border kind of equal on all of the sides and the top and bottom. Once that's done, I can cut off any overhanging pieces from that card piece there. For the sentiment, I am going to be stamping this onto some black cardstock, and I'm using the Here For You stamp set, and I'm just going to take the thanks from there. As I'm heat embossing, I have added a little bit of anti-static powder to that piece of black cardstock before stamping the sentiment with some embossing ink from Altenew. Once that's nicely stamped, I can then take some of the pure white embossing powder, and I'm just going to kind of pour that over the top, tap off any excess before I do heat set that. So once I have this nicely embossed, I'm then just going to trim off the sides and the top and bottom of this, just making sure that I have an equal border around the thanks sentiment with that black cardstock. So I'm just going to use my little trimmer here. You can use your scissors if you want to, if you're a little bit more better with yours than mine, but I do find that my little trimmer works a treat. So once that's done, I am then going to take some foam tape again, pop that behind the sentiment, and then pop my sentiment into place. So here is the card complete. I really do hope that you like the card and that you've enjoyed the video as well. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share, because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you again really, really soon. Bye-bye.